Good evening. How are you? Great? Feeling sleepy? Don't know what you're doing here? Yeah? Me too. Not quite sure. So, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be at PragueJS. I kind of feel weird to have a mic to talk to a small room, and I usually don't need a mic, so if I speak too loud, just let me know. I would try to move the mic a little bit. So my name is Frédéric Harper. I'm from Canada, from Montreal. I speak French, and I try to speak in English. So that's going to be interesting tonight, having a French guy speaking in English to check people. So if there is something you don't understand, please let me know. We have people in front that are bilingual, so they can probably translate your question if you're not comfortable to say it in English, and I'm really not comfortable to answers in Czech, so if you don't understand in English, we will have someone that may be volunteer to translate this to you. So I work at Mozilla. I'm a senior technical evangelist. What does that mean, being an evangelist? It's basically, like I love to say, it's to give love to the developer. So this is part of my job. It's to create a relationship between developers and the company. I'm there to help developers to be successful with the platform. And day-to-day, that means doing conferences, presentation in user groups and conference, doing workshops, hackathons, blog posts online, coding, working on presentation. So really to share my passion about technology and help developer being successful on their platform. So if you are on Twitter and you want to tweet during the presentation, I won't be upset, just go for it. You can use my handle at @Harper. Actually, I like this. Like, if you're not listening during all the presentation, I may not like this, but if you tweet once in a while to share stuff that was good or stuff that wasn't that good, please go ahead. This is the power of social media. If you are the kind of person who likes to take notes on what's around the slide, don't do this tonight, please. You only have one link to remember. It's outofcomfortzone.net. This is my personal blog, and I'm going to put the slides there. And they are recording the presentation also, so we're going to put this online somewhere, I suppose, after the presentation. Sounds good? I speak too fast? Not enough? No? If you feel bored, there is beer. You can always drink, get drunk. That's going to be a lot more awesome. So I'm going to talk about empowering mobile developers and web developers with JavaScript and Web API. So this is a JavaScript user groups. How many of you use JavaScript maybe day-to-day or daily or at least during the week? Kind of, yeah. Those people that were not sure, what are you doing? Which technology do you use? Okay. Any other technology? I heard .NET before. No? Okay. PHP. I used to do PHP a lot. Yeah. Good, good. So tonight's going to be mainly just about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. If you have any other question about PHP, Java, I did PHP and Java in the past, in my previous life as a developer. I can answer some question, but that's not going to be the talk for tonight. So I tried. I really tried. And I try to do this every time that I'm going in a country where there is a language that I don't speak. And thanks to Google Translate, I'm able to at least know how it's written. And even with this little speaker button, they tell you how to say this. I tried so hard. I fail. So that's not going to happen tonight. So I don't speak Czech at all. I tried. So the idea tonight is really to talk about the web, how the web is evolving, and what kind of tools we have as a developer to make more awesome application. Actually, people that are late need to sing a song. Do you want to sing a song? No? No? Usually people late need to sing. So I don't know for how long you're developing, creating software as your day job or as a passion, but when HTML5 came, since HTML5 is there, it's an amazing technology, but there is always one question that comes to mind. if I need to create an application, do I need to create a native application going like with Objective-C for iOS, using Java for Android, or should I create a web application using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? And there is always what I call that sumo fight between those two kind of people, or those two technologies, and people are like, oh, we should build native application, or no, we should build web application. And it's a never-ending discussion. It's been there since HTML5 is there, and I hope that at some point we're going to have a better answer, and it's what I'm going to try to do tonight. Which kind of technology we should use when we're going to build our next web application. So actually, in a couple of years, we're going to have more than 38 billion devices connected to the internet. This is a lot of devices. That does not mean that those devices will all have web browsers or will all need interaction from the users. That can be my refrigerator. I have my Fitbit connecting to my phone with Bluetooth and my phone connected to the internet, and I have no real interaction. It's just to save my data to the cloud, but still it's connecting to the internet. But most of the time, those devices have browsers. Laptop, smartphone, TV, consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, you can navigate the web. And what is killing me when we think about those things is that if you're targeting a specific platform, you're preventing other users to access your application or access your services because it's only available on one platform. So my answer is usually it starts with the web. If you want to build an application and you want to reach the more people, if you want to reach the bigger audience, start with the web. Start with a web application. And it's great, because now we have HTML5. We had HTML4, we have HTML for a couple of years. But with the latest version, we got a lot of great features, we got a lot of great addition to the technology that make our life easier as a developer. It's a lot more easier now to really create great experience for users. But when it comes to mobile devices, HTML5 fade a little bit. I cannot access the hardware. There's a lot of things that I cannot do that I am able to do when I'm creating a native application on different platform. And that's kind of killing me, because HTML5 was the premises of the future for developers, and I think it is. But I think it's not there yet when it comes to mobile development, when it comes to creating application that's going to work on smartphone. So tonight, my goal is to take that kind of fade HTML5 technology for mobile application and make it shiny again. Because as a developer, we need those tools, we need those APIs to really give great experience to our users. So what we deserve as a users, it's something we worked on for a couple of years now, a little more than 2 years. It's Firefox OS. And 2 years ago, Mozilla, because I work at Mozilla, the people behind the Firefox desktop, of course, if you don't know. And we're not a company to make money. We are not there to make profit. Our goal, our mission, is to give access to the web to more people. And one of the things we notice is that there is a lot of people that don't have access to the web. There's a lot of people that have features phone that would benefit from having a smartphone. So 2 years ago, we decided, hey, let's build an OS that will work well, that will be open, that will give access to the web to people. And it's what we did. 1 year ago, we launched our first device, and today, it's really working well. So actually, it's an OS built with the web, on the web. So using HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript, with a number of APIs that I'm going to talk a little more after, create an OS that really gives access to the web, an OS that is open. As you can see on the image there, it's a UI that you may know. It looks a little bit like Android. This is an experience that users usually have on smartphone. You have application, you get access to the web. It's not because it's HTML5 that it's not working offline. It's not because it's HTML5 that it's slower than native application. So we did a lot of work on this. We also have something that we call adaptive app search. And it's just to introduce you Firefox OS for people that don't know it. After this, we're going to go a little more into code. But what is great is that because the web is the platform, you don't need to install application to test it. So we have something called adaptive app search. And if, I don't know, I'm a big fan of YouTube, I go on my adaptive search bar, I type YouTube, my phone experience is going to change to reflect my search. So I'm going to have applications listed like YouTube, IMDb, Wikipedia, and all those applications, when I'm going to launch them, if I launch YouTube, I'm going to see all the YouTube's, not maybe all the videos, but like the most popular videos of YouTube on the YouTube application. So my phone will give me the experience that I'm looking for when I'm looking for YouTube. So I don't need to know the application. I don't need to install those applications. So it's a great way to test applications, a great way to not having to install all those applications that you use maybe just once in a while. So this is part of the experience of Firefox OS. It's open source. And this is something really interesting. I don't know if you're contributing to project right now or not, but what is great with open source is that you can contribute. So it's not just something about Mozilla. It's not just paid staff working on Firefox OS. There's a lot of contributors that are working on it. If you don't like something in Firefox OS, if you see a bug, if you want to add a feature, you can do it because it's open source. It's on GitHub. You go there, fork the project, and participate in Firefox OS. What we did when it comes to architecture, we basically took what Android did, but make it better. So we started with the Gunk Linux kernel. So basically, the architecture started with Linux, the Gunk Linux kernel, and we used the driver on top of this. After this, we had the Gecko. Gecko is our engine behind Firefox. So it's basically what is running everything that is HTML web-based on the phone. And what we did compared to Android phone is that we removed all the single vendor native API layer and all the things that were slowing down the phone. Because we use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we want this to be really fast. And on top of that, we had Gaia. And Gaia is basically the UI of Firefox OS. And what is great is that everything you see on the phone is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's not just the application that the developer create. All the OS is made with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So even when you make a call, the application for making call or sending SMS is made with web technology. So I don't think we're mostly JavaScript developer here, HTML, CSS. I don't have to tell you the benefits of HTML5. But what is great when it comes to a platform like this is that you don't have to learn a new language. Use the language you already know. The only thing you're going to have to do if you want to give a better integration is to learn those new API. But it's the technology you use day to day when you're creating website or web application. So right now, I got a couple of great questions about Firefox OS at the beginning, before the talk. And people are like, oh, so you launch in one country. No, we launched in 15 countries in the last year. So it's working well. There's a lot of excitement. We worked with a couple of partners, 7 mobile operator, 4 hardware partner. Actually, we have, I think it's 7 phones out there that people can get. Not in every country, you cannot get all the phones in every country, but we have more than one device out there, and we have more devices to come. So it's just the beginning. And why I'm telling you this, I'm usually not a big fan of like showing numbers and all those things, but it's just to show you that it's some serious shit. Like, it's not just a project that we said we're going to do it. Like, I talked to someone, I was at the Mobile World Congress a little more than 1 month ago, and someone came to me and said, Fred, when Mozilla announced that they're going to work on the OS for smartphone, I laugh at you. I laugh at Mozilla because I said, there's no way, there is iOS, Android, you're going to fail, guys. This is stupid. And he said, 1 year ago, when you announced that you're going to launch your first phone, it was a developer preview phone, really for a developer, not for consumer. We launched our first phone. He said, I laugh at you. Nice, congrats. You have one phone. Now you need to create phones for users, and you need to sell those. And this guy came to me at the Mobile World Congress after and told me, Fred, I don't laugh anymore. You're serious people. You made it, and it's successful. You may not see that phone everywhere, and it's okay, because it's not a phone for everyone. This is a phone for emerging market. Those are low entry level phone. So as an example, there's no phone available yet here. That's going to come. That's going to come. But right now, you can go on the internet, and you can buy the ZTE Open on eBay, on their eBay store, and it's $100. No contract, nothing, just $100. You have the phone. Of course, I told you those are low entry level phone. If you compare those to your latest iPhone or the high-end Android device, you may find that they are a little bit slower. It's because it's the price point. But you may not be the user for that devices, or you may be also. So it's really depending on the choice. But those really inexpensive devices, it's working well, and it's only the beginning. So I told you that it's not just about the web as you know it, it's also about application. So we have a marketplace. You can go there. As a developer, it's really good because we don't ask you to pay money to develop for Firefox OS. Like, this is nice, you're developing for the web. We don't charge you. The only place where we charge you is if you have a paid application. We're going to keep a small amount of your selling because we need to run that thing. We need to run the marketplace. But you don't have to pay a license fee to be a Firefox OS developer. You don't even have to publish your application to the marketplace if you don't want to. This is an open ecosystem. If you want to build your own marketplace, go for it. If you just want to add an install button on your website, go for it. Of course, we highly suggest you to publish your application to the marketplace because that's going to be the first place that user will look for application. But at the end, this is still open. So I'm talking about application. What is a Firefox OS application? Actually, I don't like that term. I would prefer to say what is a web application working on Firefox OS. Because for me, every web application is a Firefox OS application. So you have two choices. You can create an hosted app. And this is basically like having a website. You put this on your own server. You use GitHub Pages or whatever you own, where you can put your application. You just put it there. If you decide to submit your application to the marketplace, that's going to be kind of a symlink. That's going to be a link between your application and the marketplace. So user will still be able to find your application in the marketplace, but that's going to be hosted on your own server. You can also create what we call the package app. This is basically a zip file with all the resources that you need for your application. JavaScript, CSS, HTML, images, sound file, everything you need to run your application. In that case, when you're going to submit your application to the marketplace, we're going to host the zip file. So there's different advantages for those two ways of creating an application. I will come back a little more after on this. Because it's open, you can just do what I call vanilla HTML5 application. Just use HTML, CSS, JavaScript that you already know. Don't care about any API, don't care about any libraries. That's going to work. If you want, you can use any JavaScript libraries. That should work on Firefox OS. Most of those libraries work. Actually, usually if it's working in a browser, in the desktop browser, and you did a great job, you don't have a specific vendor prefix, or you just don't develop just for WebKit, that should work on Firefox OS. But you can also use those specific web API that I'm going to talk a little more about. There's different level of access, regular, privileged, certified API, and you can use those APIs to really create a better experience, to really give a better experience to your users. So how can I do this right now? If I have an HTML application, I only have to add a manifest file. This is basically a JSON file, and that tells the OS that your web application works on Firefox OS. That can be installed on Firefox OS. So there's the description of the application. There is the icons here. I can give information about myself, and I can talk about the permission. Write the permission. So that application will use the geolocation. So the user will have to access. So it's not because it's web technology that is not secure. There's a permission system behind those applications, and you use the manifest file to put those permissions. So let me show you how you can quickly create a Firefox OS application. So, yeah, I'm going to try to keep the mic. So what I'm going to do now, I have a small application here. I don't know if you know to do MVC. Maybe not. This is a cool project on GitHub also, and it's basically to help people to learn different MVC library that it can use by having one example using those different libraries, so it's easier for you to understand what are the benefits and the pro and con for those libraries. So I have, I don't know if you see those. Are you good? You see the name? Actually, it's not quite important, but like, just trust me. There's a JavaScript file, HTML5. There's everything I need to run my application. If I run this in the browser, this is a small to-do list. I can delete tasks. I can say, okay, I'm gonna put the mic there. I can say drink a beer after the presentation. You know what's important for me now. And get back to the hotel. I can say, okay, no, I don't want to go back to the hotel. I'm in Prague. There's a good nightlife, so we'll see after. So it's a small to-do list, nothing really huge. But actually, this one is working with Ember.js. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my code that I had there. It's basically in that folder, to do, and just because I'm lazy, I'm going to paste this in another folder. So basically, this is just a folder that I created before to save you some time, not to see me type everything and create everything in front of you. So the small folders have icons, so just PNG file because I need icons when I'm submit my application to the marketplace. And I already created my manifest file. So basically, this is my manifest file. I have the version, .1. This is to-do Ember, description, Launchpad, my icon. I'm really proud of making that application, so I put my name there. And there is no special permission. So really, like easy application. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste my code in that folder. If I can see that folder, I think I can do it now. I lost my folder. I'm not even able to open Finder. This is weird. I really lost my folder. I don't know what happened. You know, there is the demo God, and you don't want me to show you what I'm going to do. This is weird. Sorry? Oh, thanks. I don't know what happened. So, get back to desktop. Thanks. You saved my life. So I'm going to paste if the demo got once. Yay, so I have the previous code that I had before. And what I did, if you see in my manifest file, the only thing I did is that I point to the Launchpad. And actually, the Launchpad is basically to tell Firefox OS, well, it's going to be the first HTML5 that I'm going to use to start my application. So I just paste my code in that folder because it was just easier to do it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go in Firefox. There's really something weird. I'm going to go in Tools. And what is great is that when it comes to Firefox OS, you don't have to download any tools. You already have anything you need to debug and test your application. So when you go with the latest version of Firefox, you go into Menu Tools, Web Developers, you go with App Manager. And App Manager is basically where you're going to manage application you want to test in the simulator, application you want to test or debug on a real device. And what you can see at the bottom, I told you about two types of applications. So I can debug those two types. If I want to debug a hosted application, I can just point to a link. If I want to debug a local application or a package app, I can do it also. So in my case, I'm gonna use a package app because I'm debugging locally. I don't need to zip all that files, but I just need to select a folder where I have that manifest file. So I'm gonna go back to my desktop. Go to Firefox OS. I have my manifest file there. This is the application that I just created, to-do Ember. What you see now is that I have my application right there, but I also have all the information of my manifest. So this is a nice place to see if my manifest is working well because it validates my package. So I know if I did any error or if anything is working well. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start the simulator. On my on my Firefox installation, I installed two simulator versions, 1.2 and 1.3. So I'm going to use 1.2. That's going to start the simulator. And what is great is that you don't need to have a real device to test your application. Of course, at some point you may want to test your real device because it's always better to test on the real stuff. But we have a real good simulator, and you don't need to, in most of the development process, to have a real device. So I'm going to press update. That's going to push my application on my simulator. And if I run that application, you're going to see that my application is working on Firefox OS. So that was that simple. Of course, please don't tell me it's not working so well because like I need to scroll and the application is too large. But it's just because that application not using something like responsive web design. So it was easy to port my application to Firefox OS. I just had the manifest file. Of course, it's not always that easy. Like you can see in that case, I had to probably redefine a little bit my CSS to make it work on a smaller screen because that application was not made to adapt the viewport on different screen. But actually using PragueJS, using the application that was working in the browser, it's now working on the simulator. You were not impressed. Yeah? Ah, thanks. That doesn't work if I need to ask you to close. But the point was, like, it's really easy to do so. I really have something weird happening with my computer. So what comes now is the web API, because I show you, okay, it's easy to port your actual HTML application, but you need to agree that the application that I just ported to Firefox OS may not the best Firefox OS application you will ever have, because that application had no integration with the platform at all. And it's not something special. It's something you can do right now on the desktop, on the browser. So there is no, like, I didn't use specific API. So I'm going to talk about something we created called the web API. And this is what we decided at Mozilla to make because we thought that HTML5 was missing those APIs that really give access to the user to specific things like the hardware. So those web API work on Firefox OS. Our goal are not to keep those API proprietary. We work with the W3C and the standard body to be sure that those will be part at some point of the standard. And what is great is that because we don't want to make something closed, we don't want to make something proprietary, those API, if they change or if something new is proposed to the standard that makes sense for a mobile platform, we're going to change our API or add those API to the platform. So we have a couple of APIs. I told you about regular APIs. So those are APIs like alarm, battery status, geolocation, proximity sensor, vibration API. So those are APIs that you can use on two types of application, either hosted application or package application. We don't need to certify your application when you use those because we don't have any security issue with those things. And we also have something called web payment. So with JavaScript, you're going to be able to charge people. You're going to be able to manage payments. So those APIs are available right now. You can use those to create your application. Let me show you how to use the ambient light sensor. So actually, this is right now. This is something you cannot do with JavaScript right now. You cannot access the ambient light sensor on a real device, but you can do this with Web API. Again, using JavaScript, I'm going to be able to add an event listener on device light, and when that's going to fire, I'm going to call my function. And in that case, I was lazy. I'm just showing this on the log file. I do a constant log, and I'm showing the value. So I'm going to have an event.value in lux between, I think it's 50 and 10,000. So 50 is really low light, and 10,000 is really like, oh my God, you're probably going to be blind at the end of that presentation. So those are the values that you get. After this, you manage your code. That could make sense if you're creating, I don't know, a reader application, and if the user is reading your article in the dark in his room, you may want to change the background to facilitate this. Or there is a couple of opportunity to use that API. Let me show you how it's working with a real device. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna disconnect. I have something weird, really weird. Oh, I don't know what I did, but it's back. Yay. So I disconnect the simulator. Now I have my real device that I quickly show you before. Those are developer devices. You cannot get those anymore, but really great device to test your application. We give a bunch of those to developers that created Firefox OS application at the beginning. So when I connect my phone to the computer, of course, I did all the configuration that I have to do. On macOS, it's working like really easily. On Windows, you're going to have to install the driver. On Linux, it's quite working easily also. So I'm going to connect to my Kion. And what I'm going to have on my phone is an incoming request to say, hey, someone wants to debug your phone. So let me show you how it's working. I'm going to show you the screen on my phone. It's kind of interesting using a Java application to show HTML technology. So the frame rate's going to be slow. It's not Firefox OS. It's really the application, but this is the only application that we can use to show what's on the phone. So it's really not Firefox OS. So as you can see, this is the OS. I have some application. This is a pretty empty phone. I deleted all the application that I had just to start with something new. So I had the browser. I had the marketplace there. And I can use the app manager to debug on a real phone. I can use the app manager to send application, to push application on a real phone. So I'm going to add another package app called the boilerplate application. So this is the Firefox OS boilerplate application. This is a project that one of my coworkers started to really try to showcase how to code for Firefox OS. So I'm going to add that application again to my app manager, same things that you saw before, the manifest information, validate that my manifest is working well. But now what I'm going to do, I'm going to push that application to my phone. So by clicking update, you're going to push my application to the phone. This is the first time I'm going to have the boilerplate. As you can see now, I have the new icon. If I click on, no, I always do this. I always click on my screen instead of the phone. If I use the phone the right way and I click on the application, I'm going to start my application. And this is basically an application with a lot of web API and web activities already implemented. So it's a really great project if you want to see how it's done. It's really not a useful application outside of just knowing how those things can be implemented with JavaScript and HTML. So if I use the ambient light sensor, oh, I just killed the, can you see now the number? Yeah, okay. Because I just killed the zoom. I think the zoom application was killing my laptop. So now you can see that it's 61, 62, 63 locks. If I put my N over the phone, you're going to see that the locks number will change to 20. And if I move back, I'm going to get back. If I put near the screen, that's going to be a little bit like bigger or not. You see the point. You know how it's working in ambient light. What is great is that now I did this with JavaScript. So it was not native like on iOS or Android. It was really using JavaScript to make this happen. There's other API that you can use. There's the battery status as another example. So what is great, again, today you cannot access the battery status with JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. Now you can do this in JavaScript. So that's going to be easier for me to do navigator.battery. I'm going to have my object, and with that object, I'm going to be able to get the level. I'm going to be able to get the charging time, the discharging time, and I'm going to be able also to add listener. That could be useful in if my application, if I want to monitor the fact that, hey, the phone will be dead soon. So it may be a good time to save the data for your users. Again, using JavaScript, I'm going to be able to do this easily. There's also another API called, another categories of API called Privilege API. Again, you can use those APIs to create your application. There's the browser API, TCP, socket, device storage API. But you can only use those APIs on package app. So you cannot create a hosted application using those APIs because we need to certify your application at that point. So you're gonna, if you use one of those API, you're gonna have to submit your application to the marketplace. We're gonna have a reviewer team that's gonna review your application, and we just want to know that you're not doing some evil stuff with those APIs. So a little bit like any other platform. The only thing is that we try to make that open a lot more. But there are some APIs that we need to restrict, that we need to verify that you're not doing some evil stuff with. So still interesting, things like the browser API. And the first time when I saw the browser API, I was like, I have a browser API on a platform that is basically a browser, and I even have the Firefox browser on Firefox OS. It's like, this is kind of not necessary. And when you think about it, that can be useful. I don't know if you know the service Remember the Milk or any other service that asks you to connect so like the developer can have access to the API and can have access to your data. So I was creating that Remember the Milk application, and basically I have access to the API, but if I want to have access this is basically a to-do list application, but if I want to access your task on your account, you need to log in, and you need to give the permission to my application to access your task. So in that case, I need a browser. So I will basically create an iframe, and the magic word is the mouse browser. So if I put the mouse browser in the iframe, that's going to use the browser API. And in that case, what's happened in my example is that for Remember the Milk, I open that iframe, I point the user to the Remember the Milk website with the good URL. The user will sign in, will say, hey, I want to give that application access to my task. Remember the Milk will forward me to a new URL with a specific key that I need to get if I want to access the API and if I want to access the task for the user. And at that point, what I did, again with JavaScript, I had an event listener, I had a lot of values, but in my case, I had the mouse browser location change. So I know that when the URL changed, I was able to grab that URL, split to get the variable, the information that I need, get the key, and after this, just remove the browser, access with the API, access the task, and just make my application work. So this is another API that you can use. This is a privilege API. There's the contact API that you're going to be able to use, again, with JavaScript. I don't want to take too much time on those things. It's just to show you that they are there, they exist. We have something also, another category called Certified API. And this one is a little bit tricky because you can't use those. And yes, I'm taking your precious time to talk about API you can't use. Right now, they're mostly for OS application or application that OEM put on the phone before selling those. As a developer, you cannot use those APIs. I cannot use those APIs. But why I'm talking about those one is that there is a lot of things interesting. Camera API, voicemail, web SMS, web Bluetooth. That doesn't mean that right now, if they're a certified API, that they will be certified API forever. At some point, they may move from certified to privilege or maybe to regular API. So it's good to know that those APIs are there. But I would be, like, if I was at your place, I would be worried that the camera API is for certified application because, hey, I may need camera or take pictures in my application. So to skip the security, not to skip the security, but to make those things secure, we created what we call the web activities. And web activities are mainly activities that you can use that will require most of the time user action to be able to use specific things. So there's the browse, the configure, dial, record, the pick, the share, the view. There's a lot of those activities that you can use. But I was talking about the camera. My application need to use pictures or need to use images for whatever reason. So in that case, I'm going to use a web activities called pick. So I'm going to say, hey, new mouse activity. My activity is a pick activity, and the type of data that I want is JPEG file. This is what I want. What's going to happen when I'm going to run that code? The user will show that screen, will see that screen. So this is the interaction part. So the user will have to say, hey, I want to select wallpaper, I want to select images in my gallery, or I want to take a picture. So the user will have to do a manual process there, but that will give you access to the camera. But you don't have to decide if it's from the camera or from the image. You just need an image to do whatever you need to do. The user will take the decision to choose the one that makes sense for him. After this, I'm going to be able to take the image that the user selected, if you select one. If not, activity on error is going to be called. If it's working, if it's successful, we're going to call on success. And in that case, my anonymous function will grab the image that the user selected, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do with the images. So again, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, I'm going to say this quite often tonight. Those are the technology that you're going to use to manage those things. So there's a web activities for this. There's also a web activities to call someone. I don't want a developer to be able to call people I don't want to call, or I don't want an application to call people when I don't know about it. So there is the web activities that give me that, that possibility. Again, most activities, this one is the dial activities, and I can even put a phone number on it. And what's going to happen is that when I'm going to run that code, the user will see the dial application already with the phone number. The only difference is that the user will have to push the green button himself or herself to be sure that to call that phone number. So again, you have the power to use the dial application, but the user will have to basically give you the permission or just complete the task. So this is why we create those web activities, to give you access to those APIs that you don't have access right now. Again, same things with the contact APIs. I can create a contact with a lot of information. That won't save the contact. The user will have to press the down button. Again, using JavaScript. But it's not the only thing with web activities. I can be an handler of web activities. So in those cases, as a developer, my application use those activities to get data. But I can use those activities to give data to someone. So in that case, if my application can provide images, I can put in my manifest file. And this is why the manifest is so important, because this is where you declare what you can do, what your application will do. So in that case, I'm going to say, hey, if there is a pick activities that need PNG file or JPEG file, I can do this. So when the pick activity is going to be called for PNG or JPEG, my application will be on the list. Remember the list that I show you for the pick activities? My application will be there. And I will just have to manage what I'm going to send to the user. So in that case, in my manifest, I'm saying, hey, if the user select my application for the pick activities, call index.html. In my case, in index.html, I will have to manage this. And I'm going to be able to say, hey, I'm a message handler. If there is an activity pick, let me send you the picture. Again, using JavaScript. So that gives you the possibility to really communicate between different applications and not just be someone who will use the data, but someone also who can provide the data. Those applications that you're going to create, they're going to work on Android if you have the Firefox browser installed. So we are working on what we call, I think, the APK, totally forgot the name, APK something. That will actually, what's going to happen is it's a web service, and when you're going to do, like actually right now, if you use the Firefox desktop and you install Firefox OS application, that will create an application in your application folder on OS X. That's going to work. So that's going to be the same thing with Android. It's called the APK Factory. I found it. So with the APK Factory, you're going to be able to install Firefox OS application on Android. That's going to create like an Android application. So this is pretty awesome because you're going to use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You're going to create your application for Firefox OS, and that's going to work on Android. So you're going to be able to reach more people with one application, one type of application. But of course, you need Firefox installed on your Android device because that's going to be the kind of runtime behind the, those applications. So how to start? I show you. It's as easy or as fun as running a unicorn. It's really not easy. If you already have a web application working in a browser and you did a great job, it's not just working in Chrome or not just in IE, it's working in those browsers. You create a great code. It's probably already using responsive or whatever. That's going to work on Firefox OS. So that's not really going to be hard to do. Of course, you may have any little thing to fix, little bugs, but we are there to help you if you have any question. Is there any people using PhoneGap or Cordova today? Yes, nice. I love you. So what is great is that just recently we had Firefox OS support to Cordova and PhoneGap too. So what is great, this is another way to create HTML5 application that's going to reach multiple platforms. So for those of you that don't know, PhoneGap is a framework that gives you the opportunity with like HTML API to create application, and you're going to be able to generate application for different platforms like Android, iPhone, Windows Phone, WebOS, BlackBerry. So as I said, we had Firefox OS support recently. We worked with the folks at Hadabase to make this happen. That seems to be a little bit meta, to use HTML5 to generate HTML5 application. But of course, if you just want to target Firefox OS or web browser, it may not be the best solution, but if you want to target multiple devices, that could be a great solution. So what we did is that we just created the same API, and there's a link, kind of a link between PhoneGap API and Firefox OS API. So in that case, those are the APIs that we implemented yet. So we don't have all the APIs yet. We're still working on those. But we have the major one, like camera, contacts, device, orientation, vibration API. So those APIs on PhoneGap are implemented. So when you generate your Firefox OS application, that's going to work. And it's really not that hard. You're going to do the same thing that you do with other platforms. In that case, I use Cordova. I used the Node package manager to install Cordova. I said, hey, I'm going to create an L-World application using that code without the to-do here. And I'm going to say, hey, I want also to target Firefox OS. So let's add Firefox OS as a platform and generate my application. And that application that will be generated, you're going to be able to use the simulator. You're going to be able to test it on a real device. That's going to be a Firefox OS application. So really nice if you're using PhoneGap or Cordova, or if you plan to do so. So what's going to happen in the background is that in my case, I said, hey, I want to use the camera API of PhoneGap. So I'm just adding the plugin to my project. And this is the PhoneGap code. And so this is basically what I'm going to use in PhoneGap to use the camera. And what's going to happen is that when you're going to run that Firefox OS application, you're going to see the same thing that if you had built the Firefox OS from scratch and used the pick activity. So that's going to translate that PhoneGap code or Cordova code to Firefox OS code. So really transparent. It's working like any other platform. I told you about the app manager and the simulator, so those are the tools that you really need to use. The app manager is already in Firefox. The simulator, those are free add-ons that you can add. So you can add Firefox OS 1.2, Firefox OS 1.3 for now. I think 1.4 will be available really soon. How many of you know Firebug? Yeah. How many of you know that we had tools inside of Firefox? Oh, I'm quite impressed. Usually the number is way lower than Firebug, so I think the presentation that we're making start to be a little bit successful. So this is another thing with Firefox OS is that because inside of Firefox we have those web developer tools, those are the tools that you can use to debug your application in Firefox OS. So let me show you quickly how it's working. I can either debug in the simulator, or I can also debug on a real device. If I want to debug on a real device, the only thing is that I'm going to need to have Firefox OS 1.2 on my device. If I don't have 1.2, I'm not going to be able to debug my application with the app manager. So if I click debug, if I can click on Firefox, there's something, really something. There we go. So if I click debug, I'm going to be able right now to debug my Firefox OS boilerplate. So how many of you use that tools? Or maybe Chrome tools, or like those tools are quite similar at some point. So you have the consoles, you have the inspector. So I'm going to be able to point specific things on my screen, so I can do the inspector and click on something on my phone. So I just push with my finger with the inspector, and that's going to point the code on my Firefox instance here. So this is really nice on a real device that you can do this. I have the debugger because usually when you got trouble with web application, there's usually two things, like your CSS was bad and you need to fix something on your UI, or your JavaScript was bad and now you need to debug. So this is debugger. You can add watch watch variable, you can debug in JavaScript. So the things you know in the debugger. The style editor that I really like because I'm really bad when it comes to CSS. And it's always painful when you need to go back to, I don't know if I had to do this because I'm not going to be able to push. Yeah, okay. So you need to open your IDE, modify the CSS because you did not align something well. You save the file, you update your application to the phone, and you test it. Oh, no. Was not the right value. So what is great is that directly I'm going to be able to, with this style editor, to modify, I don't know, the background, because I have really nice taste when it comes to UI. And actually, it's working on my phone. So I'm going to disconnect my phone to show you. But now I have my red background. So it's really quick, it's really easy to debug, it's part of Firefox. So as I told you before, we don't force you to use any IDE, but when it's come to debugging and testing, of course you're going to use the tools inside Firefox. But when it comes to EDE, actually any tools that you're using to create HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Notepad, if you like, text edit, name it, Sublime, Visual Studio, any IDE that are working on HTML, CSS, JavaScript is going to be the right IDE to create your Firefox OS application. You don't have to learn everything by heart. I don't. So how many of you know the Mozilla Developer Network? So really, really great place when it comes to HTML, CSS, JavaScript documentation. This is basically good for anything, as I said, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but things around Firefox or the project we have. And there's a lot of documentation about Firefox OS. So every web API that I showed you before, you have the documentation, you have example, because it's an open wiki. And this is why we're Mozilla. This is what we do in Mozilla. If you find a bug, if you find a documentation that could be maybe with some tweak a little bit better, you want to have documentation that we don't have, we highly suggest you to just do it. Just do it. You can edit pages, you can create pages, and it's really there for us. It's not just for you, just for me, it's for everybody. So it's for developer from beginning to expert. So please do if you find something. We have the Axe blog. This is another great resources. So with a lot of technical blog posts, it's just technical stuff, usually and not usually, just around web technology, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some project we're working on, Firefox OS, Firefox, the developer tools, JavaScript libraries. If you feel like an author and you would like to share something with other people, please let me know. We're always looking for a new contributor. So anything that is open web related, and you want to write a blog post, let me know. That's going to give you a great exposure, and that's going to give us more great content to share with the thousands and thousands of people reading that blog. If you have any technical question, if you have any problem while developing Firefox OS application, you have two choices. You can send me an email. I don't reply always really quickly for different reasons. So what I highly suggest you is to use Stack Overflow. If you don't know Stack Overflow, this is a forum for mostly any technical question for developers, quite popular. We have a Firefox OS tag that we are actively monitoring. So me, other people on my team, other people on the engineering team, on the product team, we are checking Stack Overflow to see if there is new question that we can answer. And what is great is that I do this, other people on my team do this, but if I'm traveling like right now and I don't have time to answer a question, you have access to a lot of people. This is a huge community. So maybe while I'm sleeping, because we're not on the same time zone, someone in the same time zone as you, or just someone that don't sleep, can answer the question. So that could be something really good for you. And at the same time, what we're trying to achieve it's create a public FAQ about those questions, because you may have the same question that someone asked 1 month ago. So if you use Stack Overflow instead of just send me an email, we create some documentation for the web. So we highly suggest you to use Stack Overflow if you have any Firefox OS question. Last but not least, because this is an open project, if you don't feel like contributing to GitHub, but you found a bug or you have a feature suggestion, use our internal tool, Bugzilla. It's open to everyone. You create an account, it's free, and you can report any bug, you can comment on any bug, you can report any feature, and this is the thing we're looking for. Because part of my job is to get feedback to the team, and I'm using those tools to get feedback to the team. So if you send me an email and say, hey Fred, I found that bug, I'm going to reply, hey, Why don't you add this to Bugzilla? And I'm going to be sure that I'm going to follow up with the team. But this is a nice tool. This is because we're doing open source, because we work with communities. This is really the tool we use day to day to make this happen. So there is some candies that you can use to make the magic around Firefox OS. I told you about the Firefox OS boilerplate app. This is on GitHub. As I told you, this is, I'm not totally sure about the name boilerplate, because for me a boilerplate is mostly a starter kit. This one is not really a starter kit. It's more a demo application with all the web API and web activities. But it's really great because we have all those example on the documentation on MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network. But sometimes it's good to have like a running application that I can test in the simulator on a real device, and I can just find the specific chunk of code that I hope you won't copy and code. You will just learn how it's working and you will write your own code. But if you feel more like copy pasting, you still can do it. So you have access to that boilerplate. Again, it's on GitHub. So if you find any bug, please fix. If you find an API that is not implemented in the boilerplate, because there is some we're missing because we didn't have the time yet, please add it. Do you know GS Fido? Yeah, we're lucky enough that the developer of GS Fido really likes Firefox OS. Actually, he works at Mozilla, but he likes Firefox OS also. So really great to share code with people, to test things live in the browser. You put your code, you have the code working. What you can do right now is that if you append webapp.manifest to your URL, you're going to be able to install your application in the simulator. So you don't have to create all the files on your computer. You don't have to use everything in the app manager. You can just use webapp.manifest on GS Fido. That's going to work. Same thing, if you had fxos.html, you're going to be able to install your application on a real device if you want to test it again. So that could be a faster way, maybe when you submit something to Stack Overflow, or you send something to a partner or your customers, you want to show them what's going to happen, you can use GS Fido to do this. I told you I suck when it comes to CSS. I'm really not good, really no talent when it comes to UI. So we have something called building blocks. Those are basically reusable component that you can use on Firefox. So a bundle with CSS, JavaScript, that gives you access to different UI component that you can just add to your application. If you use those, you're going to give your application the same UI as Gaia, the OS. What is great is that we don't force you to use specific UI. We don't have those guidelines that other platforms have, because we don't want you to manage many code base. We want you to create web application. So that doesn't make sense if you try to replicate the Firefox OS UI and use that application everywhere. So we don't force you, but you can, and it's pretty good for people that are not good at UI like me. Another thing that is really great, it's not specific to Firefox OS, but I really like to talk about it, it's Brick. So this is a project that uses web component and Xtag. And those, again, are a reusable UI component that you can use in your application. But because it's using web component, it's real fast. Because it's using Xtag, it's a lot more cleaner in your code. So I like to say that Brick is a web component on steroid. It's a really nice project, but it's not just for Firefox OS. You can use this on every project that you have right now. So what's next? You can create app with cats. It's always nice to have cats in your presentation. You know you succeed when you have cats. So this is what we work on this. This is called App Maker. This is a drag and drop tool on the browser, again, to help you or help people that may not be coded to create Firefox OS applications. So this is still a work in progress, but really great. So this is one of the tools that are coming. You can start to use it right now. You can contribute again to that project also. And it's only the beginning. So all the APIs that I quickly show you, all the APIs that you can find on MDN, on the Mozilla Developer Network, on the documentation, they're only the beginning. We work on other stuff like Web NFC, Web USB, calendar APIs, all those things that we don't have access right now as web developers, that we want to give you access, of course, for Firefox OS, but not just for Firefox OS, for web development at all. So I told you, this is only the beginning. We work on Firefox OS for 2 years. Of course, what I've shown you tonight is mostly for Firefox OS right now, but we already have some APIs that are at least in a draft proposal in the standard. So we work with the standard body. We don't want to force people to use what we created, but we already did a great job with Firefox OS. So our goal is to make those part of the standard, like I told you. So part of my goal tonight, of course, was to talk about Firefox OS, to introduce you to the platform. You don't have phones available yet here. That's going to come. And what is great is that even if you try a phone, even if you come after, you try this phone, and you say, well, not for me. Just don't think about you as a user. Think about other people. Think about your customers. Think about the new audience, the new market that you can reach. We launched in 15 countries, maybe some countries where you don't have customers, or maybe you have customers there. So think about this. And just don't think about Firefox OS, think about the web. Next time you're going to build an application, don't just target a closed platform first. Start with a web application, and if you did a great job, you're probably going to be able to reuse a couple of part of what you did, like maybe your web services, or there's a couple of things you're going to be able to reuse. So start with web, because you're going to give access to your services, to your application, to as many people as you can. Those are the resources that I talked to you. The slides will be online, so you don't have to write those. Mostly everything that I talk at the end, the links are there, or if you know how to use Google, you will probably be able to find those too. Soon, I hope so. We're going to have a workshop in Prague. So we did those workshops in many countries. This is basically a full day of coding. Usually myself and one of my colleagues, Jason Withersby, we're going to come to Prague. We're going to do 1 or 2 small presentations, a really small presentation. Actually, one of them looks a little bit like this one, so that may be boring for you if you were there tonight and come to the workshop. But the second one may be better, because that's going to be different stuff. We're going to go deeper in some stuff. But our goal is not to make a conference. It's not to make presentations. It's just to be sure that you have the tools for the rest of the day, because the rest of the day is going to be about coding. You're going to create Firefox application. You're going to port the web application that you have right now. So I highly suggest you, we don't have any date yet, but I highly suggest you to fill the form. I should have used bit.ly or something. The link is a little bit too long, but the slide will be online probably tomorrow. So go there, fill the form. This is an invite-only event. So that doesn't mean that if you fill the form, we're going to invite you. You need to be nice with me. No, you need to, we want people that really believe that it's a good platform, that have already some skills around HTML, that may already have HTML application to port. And what is great is that we have those 2-3 presentations at the beginning of the day. After this, it's coding. But what is great is that if you come code with us and port your application with us, you have access to resources like me and my partner. So we can answer your question right now. You don't have to use Stack Overflow or wait. You have some technical resources on site. We'll give you a free phone. So you're going to have a free phone. You can just leave the workshop after. You keep the phone. It's yours. So that's going to be nice to test your application, to debug your application on a real device, or just use it as a day-to-day device. And we usually finish the day with a good dinner somewhere and some drinks for people that like to get some drinks. I'm one of those guys. So this is usually an interesting day. This is nice. You can meet other Mozilla folks. You can meet other developers that are really excited about web technology. So please go there, because if nobody's subscribed, we won't come in Prague again. We need people. So that's it. Last but not least, if you plan to build a Firefox OS application, if you already did one, if you are working on it, if you in 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, you decide to build something for Firefox OS, please let me know. Ping me, send me an email. I'm always looking to see what people are working on. And of course, I'm always there to help you. So if you have any question, anything, feel free to send me an email, fharper@mozilla.com. On Twitter @fharper, add me on LinkedIn. Any way you have to reach me, please use those ways. Don't forget the Axe blogs. Really nice blog, really nice blog for everything technical. If you like web technology, please follow that blog. Subscribe to the RSS feed. And tomorrow, I should post that those slides on my blog, outofcomfortzone.net, with blog posts in French, in English, most of the time in Franglish, what I call Franglish, because my English is not perfect. So I'm going to post the slides, and at some point we're going to publish also the videos. So if you miss something, if you fall asleep, if you were too drunk, you're going to be able to listen again to the video or share this with coworkers or other people. So, any question, comment, insult? You just want a beer? Actually, yeah, I want a beer. Yeah. Okay, so the question is like why Mozilla started with low-end devices and there's no high-end devices. So, good question. First, we don't do any devices. So Mozilla, we're just creating the OS. We are just working on a code, and we work with partners, and those partners, OEM, create the devices, and those operators sell the devices. So our primary goal when we decided to do Firefox OS was not just to compete iOS or Android, because this is a little bit crazy. Like they have a big chunk of the market, and if those phones work well for you, you have access to the web, there is a browser, it's working well on those devices, so I'm happy with this. The goal was to give access to emerging market, to devices. So the primary target is mostly feature phone users, so people that have those phones that are really phones. You know those phones that we used to call people? I don't think I use my smartphone to call people anymore. It's more for internet. But you know, those people, they don't have a browser. The browser sucks. Or it's like those really either old phone or really inexpensive phone. So we wanted to give those people access to the web. So those people are usually not interested in paying like a really lot of money for high-end devices. We also wanted to target low-end market. It's what we do right now. So in those markets, there's some people that have the money to buy like the latest iPhone 64 gigabyte at $1,000. But there are some people that don't have the money to. So our primary target is really low-end devices because of the price, because of the price point of those devices. Most of those devices that I told you before, they're something like $100. No contract, nothing. So it's really inexpensive. But of course, like for $100, you don't get what you get for a phone. You pay $500, $700. With that said, that doesn't mean that no high-end device will happen at some point. It's just not a priority for us. But if at some point a partner say, hey, I would like to create a high-end device, go for it. The code is there. It's on GitHub. The partners can just grab the code. The only thing we ask those partners that if they want to call those devices Firefox OS, they need to work with us because we want to be sure that they're going to have a certain level of quality. But in the meantime, if you want to build a phone in your garage and you want to call this Fred's phone, you can do it. So I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah. So of course, like if you get that phone and you place this to your Nexus 5, that's going to do that sound. Exactly. No, that's going to be that. Like the experience, not going to be the same, but this is not for the same target audience. I don't know. I'm not like maybe the business development guys work with those guys, but actually I think personally, like I really don't know the answer of the question. The question was like if we pursue those big guys like Nokia and those big builder Samsung, those big guys that are building high-end devices. I don't know, but I don't think so because we still have a lot of job just to reach more country and more market that really need those devices. And what is great is that I'm talking quite often about Firefox OS in North America because I'm in Canada, and you don't sell phones there. So you can get, as an example, the ZTE Open on the eBay store. So I can buy that phone, but there's no mobile operator selling phones in North America right now. And what happened is that, like the phone is there, and I totally lost what I was saying. But yeah, so actually, people are still excited, and you need to understand that even if there's no phone there, that can be a market for you. And when we launch those phones in the country, we launch in Venezuela, we launch in Hungary, we launch in Greece, and those people are excited. Those users that buy those phones, they're excited because for most of them, this is their first experience with a smartphone. It's working well. It have the application that you need. You have access to the web. So, and it's really inexpensive. Yeah. So the question is that if I install application on Firefox OS, can I see the code, or does it have to be open source? You don't have to create your application open source. It's not because we're Mozilla that we're forcing everybody to create open source applications. So just to answer part of your question, you can have closed source and don't put your stuff on GitHub and just create your application like any other platform. And if I install your application on my phone, there is no way for me to see your code. There is a protection with the sandbox. This is the same thing. If I install my application and I install his application, he cannot read my data, even if his application is installed on the same phone as me, because we were on those on the sandbox, and we took the security at a very high level when we created Firefox OS. What another question? Yeah. If there is any plan to enter chip market? I don't think so. Again, I don't know. I know that we have some partner that announce tablets. So tablets may come soon. I know it's not chip, but I tried to answer in another way. So yeah, there is Foxconn working on a tablet. Alcatel also is working on a tablet. Actually, the Foxconn tablets will not be for users. It's going to be mostly for developers. So they're going to be like kind of test devices. But I know Alcatel at the Mobile World Congress just announced, they just shown a tablet that they are working on. So tablets are planned. There is Panasonic or yeah, so, yeah. Well, yeah. So while we have some phones, yeah. So I think it's Panasonic that announced that it wanted to use Firefox OS on TVs. So the OS is there; people can use it. And at the Mobile World Congress, we did not announce that we're going to create chip, but we announced a $25 phone, $25 phone. So our plan. I don't know when we're going to launch this. We didn't talk about any dates, but we say, hey, $100. It's really inexpensive. But if you go to some market, it's still a lot of money. So we announced a partnership with a chip OEM, and we're going to launch those smartphones that will cost full price $25. This is crazy. I know. Any other question? Yes. I don't have any numbers. One thing I know is that with one of our partner, oh my God, which country? I'm so bad with numbers. I know that for their market, like their market share in terms of operator, will reach more than 30% of their sales. So this kind of like not huge spreadsheet of numbers, but this is the only number that I have in mind. So just to tell you, but basically I'm telling this to tell you that it's working. It's working. But as I said, our goal is not to like kill Google and Apple. Our goal is to give alternative to people and give access to the people. So of course we don't want to fail, but it's working where we launch the phone. Yeah. Any other question? Nice T-shirt too. The big, yeah, perfect. Yep. Yeah, so actually right now, if you build a Firefox OS application, the question was, is there any progress with localization? We just launched a program to help developer to localize their application, so it's working with L10N. And we use now TransFX to get our community and translator. So you can go to Axblogs, search for localization of Firefox OS application. You're going to see what we're doing right now, and we invite people to use L10N, and we have some example how to do this. And because we created that TransFX account, you can just join the Firefox OS account that we created and trying to have your application translate in other languages. And this is something we highly suggest to developer, because most of the times, oh, that's going to be in a marketplace. I should maybe do it in English because I'm going to be able to reach more people like this. But what is great with Firefox OS is that we launch in really specific country, and we launch a lot in Latin America. So Spanish is really important. So depending on the type of application, if you do something really just for like Czech people, maybe it doesn't make total sense to translate in Spanish, but if you do an application that target a larger number of people, maybe English, and I would say Spanish. We launched in Mexico, we launched in those places, and those are the applications that are more popular right now because we launch a lot on those countries. Any other question? Yes? So actually, it's basically Mozilla that are updating the code base in GitHub. But when it comes to those devices, this is the responsibility of OEM. So the question was, who is responsible to update the OS version? So we give to the OEM access to the code base, but they are the one who are creating the build and pushing the build over the air to their devices. So actually right now we have some devices that are running 1.2. We have like the Geeks phone. You can download all the build on their website and you can install them manually if you want. And we have some devices still at 1.0, 1.1 because it depends on the OEM. So we don't want, this is kind of a tricky thing is because we don't want to manage the stuff that OEMs, because they have their way of doing stuff and we don't want to enter that game. We really want to be only on the software part. So we make everything possible to be as open as we can and to give all the tools that they need to do it. But after this, it's on their side. But we're still there to like help those people to make those builds. Yeah. And second question? Okay, so the question was like, do I have to fear that Mozilla is going to be down, it's going to be dead in 1 year or two? Yeah. Under the Firefox OS. Yeah. Like, trust me, there's two parts of that answer. First one is trust me with all the efforts that we put on Firefox OS, that's not going to die tomorrow. That's not going to happen. I got hired only because of Firefox OS. Many people at Mozilla got hired only because of that project. We have a lot of effort. We put a lot of money on that project. So it's working well. It's successful. People are excited. The OEM are excited. We are announcing quite often new partnership with people. So that's really working well. So I wouldn't be afraid on that side. And on the Mozilla side, I don't know what was the number of employees, but I think that just 3 or 4 years before we had 100 or 200 employees. Now we are nearly 1,000 employees. It's growing like crazy. Of course, our goal is not to make money with Firefox OS. We're not making money with Firefox OS, but we have good money entry when it comes to. We have good, like, funny enough, part of the money that Mozilla get come from Google, because when you use Firefox and you use Google to search information on the web, you help us to work on a project because Google will give us money. But it's not just Google, it's part, but it's one of the biggest contributor to those projects. Any other question? Comment? This is a good question. Actually, I have no idea. But I need, like, yeah, now that sounds stupid, thanks. But no, actually I have no idea for real, but I know this is a big part of the company. So we're not putting other project aside, but if I have to say that we have one huge focus right now, it's Firefox OS. So I would say a big chunk of the company working on it. And at some point, even if you're not working directly on Firefox OS, there's always a road somewhere that crosses Firefox OS under project. So no, this is the biggest priority. Yeah. Yes? No, only the guy in front of you can ask questions. Not sure, did you mean if you have an Android phone and you want to install Firefox OS, or you just want to upgrade Firefox OS? Your own build? Your own Firefox OS device? Yeah, so actually, like, everything is available online, everything is on GitHub, so the code is there. If you go on Mozilla Developer Network, we have documentation on how to create your own build, your own Firefox OS version. That won't be as easy as double-click execute. It's not an easy process right now, I would say. It's totally feasible. There's a lot of people doing it. It's not totally user-friendly right now because it's not their primary goal yet. And maybe at some point it will make the process a little more flawless. But actually, you can do it. And I know a couple of people that are just using because they wanted a high-end device, they're using their Android phone and they install Firefox OS on it. Because we base the architecture a little bit on what Android did also. So it's like on some, it always depends on the drivers, but on some devices you can just install Firefox OS. So it's there. It's not easy, you can do it, but it's not super, super complicated too. And we have documentation to help you to do so. Any other question? I'm good. I sleep only 1 hour or 2. I cannot sleep on those planes with those red-eye flights, so I think I'm past the time that I need to sleep. So you can ask questions for the next 3 hours if you want. No? Actually, it's good because I really would like a beer. Yeah? Good. Thanks.